pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution in its annual reorganization meeting held on January 9, 2018. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona City Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting sending forth the time, location, agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the above newspapers, all SCA presidents, and SCA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mrs. Bernardino, Mr. Day.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Here.
Mrs. Fresky. Here. Mr. Quattrochi.
Here. Okay, welcome to our first meeting of October. Do we have any public comments or question on any agenda? Okay, so we have one presentation tonight. We have Mr. Miller, our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, to talk about our Spring 18 park results.
And so if you want to move your chair, I'll wait for you. I can? Okay. So good evening, everyone in the audience. It's good to see everyone here. We're going to review our results from the spring. When you turn on your remote. Okay. So we always begin with our mission statement. This was developed last year with a group of folks, and in partnership and support of community, we inspire our students to be creative, critical thinkers, and compassionate global citizens through dynamic teaching, meaningful curricula, and enriching experiences. This is our 4th year for PARC. I'd like to remind everyone that when before this we had what was called the HESPA test, the High School Proficiency Assessment, and we had NJ Ask. NJ Ask originally was grades 4-8, then it became grades 3 through 8. For the last 4 years, we have our students in grades 3 through 11 take the English Language Arts, and in grades 3 through 8 they take math, and then they take we're eligible for 3 high school courses: Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. The assessment objectives for PARC, the word college and career ready, became a key term in 2011 when the Common Core was adopted. We found that our students were not prepared for college. This was feedback we got from our universities. Compare performances across states. That was an idea for consortiums. If you remember back when we started this, there was Smarter Balanced and there was PARC. We were part of the PARC consortium. Assess the full range of the Common Core standards. So our tests in the past would pick certain standards and test them. What PARC promised was to measure all of them in some manner. Measure the full range of student performance, including students who perform high and low. And then the last part, which has been controversial to some degree, but the measure of growth. In New Jersey, it's called Student Growth Percentile. We still don't have those results from last spring, so we still wait for those. And measures of growth show over time, it's not just about achievement, it's do students grow every year? And if that's true, and if we can make that happen, what teachers make that happen? And where can we replicate that? For last spring, like we did the previous 3 years before this, we start in late April, and our students take 3 sections of ELA and 3 and 4 on math. It depends upon the grade level. The same types of questions have been asked. The word that we use is they're complex in nature. What you need to know in PARC is that students are given between 20 and 30 questions though, so it's not like 100, it's 20 to 30. So when you see the results and you see what kids pass and what kids are approaching, please keep that in mind. If they don't do well on one question, they drop. If we have kids that do really well, we move up. And I'll also mention when we go into the data that we have slightly over 100 students in some grade levels, around 150. So when we go up a few points and go down, it's a matter of a few students. So I'll reiterate that when I go over the results. We applied for a waiver every year because we have Chromebooks and we want to test our students at the same time. So we start with our elementary Then we take our Chromebooks and we go to the middle, and then finally, after our AP exams, we then administer care the last 4 days. We found a lot of success in that, and when you can test kids in a shorter window, teachers aren't as frustrated because they can teach. So, and we try to extend it as long as we can, because if you're going to test students on a year-end course, and you test them in April, it's not really year-end. Make sense? So, how are they scored? So, in the past, NJS and HESPA were assessed over 3 levels. Now it's over 5 with PARC. It starts with a 650, goes up to 850. 4 and 5 are considered passing. When we look at it a different way, we can see to be partially proficient, you need to score over a 700. That means you earn 50 points because it starts at a 650. And then it goes up in increments of 25. So a passing score is 750. So a student roughly earns 50%. That's considered passing. And there are students that actually in this district that earn a scale 850. That's where they don't get anything wrong. And that's very difficult on these tests. These tests are very challenging. And since they're time too, sometimes students even run out of time. So we'll go on to ELA. So we're going to look at our elementary. Over the last 4 years, our elementary schools combined. So in blue was 2015, red is 2016, yellowish orange is 2017, and then green is 2018. If you look at grade 3, last year, 3 out of 5 of our students earned a passing score. I want to remind you that our 3rd graders are typing. All our students are across the state, but so when I look at these results in grade 3, they're just learning how to do this. I think back when I was in 3rd grade, if I had to write a response in pencil, that was pretty good, but if I had to type it, I don't know how good I would have been. And I know our students are proficient with phones, but it's different when you have to answer questions with passages. So overall, we've been above 60% is what we're pleased with because we're introducing the students to the idea. And we have the right vehicle of a reading and writing workshop. We're differentiating, we identify reading levels in kindergarten and 1st grade. So we're pleased with how we're doing. We spend a lot of time with students on reading and writing within book clubs and guided reading, so we're doing the right thing. If I go to grade 4, if you look, nearly 4 out of 5 students earn a passing score. That's been our highest result. Now, if I go back 1 and show you last year, if you look at the gold bar, it's at 70%. These are the students now that are green. So we actually increased. We had 8% of our students, which I would say about 12 students actually increased to a passing score. It's the 2nd year they're taking the assessment, and I think they get more used to the assessment, if you ask me. So there we are. And what we want to see is with does not meet and partial, we want to see a shift to where it's approaching and then to meet and exceeding. We always want to slide kids. That shows that they're learning. When we go to the middle school, in grade 5, we have 68% of our students, so nearly 7 out of 10 of our students earned a passing score. 2 out of 10 were approaching, and then the final or partial does not meet. This is our full population. I do want to say that at our middle school, we still are trying to find time. We have 45-minute periods where I don't have the results yet, but later I'll share in another meeting how we do against our comp groups. Some of our 5th grade schools have up to 60, 70 minutes of time. So we are in a deficit with time. What I like to say about grade 5 and 6 is that out of a 4-day cycle, they get a workshop in the afternoon where they can work with conferencing with students, they can work on reinforcing skills. In grade 6, our first year in 2015, we were very strong. What I like to say is, if you see 62% of our students, you'd say, all right, well, it looks like it's dropped some. But if you go back to grade 5, if you look at gold, 64% of the students were proficient. If you look at grade 6, 62%. So 2 or 3 kids went from meets or exceeds to approaching. So, and see that's where our approaching increased some. Some of these kids were on the border. So if you remember the score that I showed you, 750 was the line. A student really could have done a 752 to a 748. And that goes from meets or exceeds and approaching, and that's what we saw. We saw a lot of kids in the 740s. It's the nature of the test. When we go to grade 7, we had our highest results. So if you look back at grade 6, 68% of the students that are in gold for the last were proficient, 75% of the students in grade 7. So we increased by 7%. So that's around 10 to 12 students. So those have been our strongest results. And if you noticed over here, and I didn't put them in here, but our does not meet and partial, our lowest it's ever been. It's about 6%. So we, again, shifted to approaching, and then we moved over to. So we're really pleased with grade 7. And then grade 8 too. And I'd like to say in the past 3 years, we've been working with our trainer on differentiated instruction. We've identified reading levels, and I think this is why you're seeing an increase in the scores. And again, I'd like to mention that grade 7 and 8, they only have 45 minutes a day. And there is no afternoon workshop period every 4 days for our 7th and 8th grade students. When we get to the high school, we're really pleased with our grade 9 results. Have always been really strong. Again, 3 out of 4 students were proficient. We have book clubs. We started book clubs 3 years ago where students have choice. The teaching level has increased at the high school. Dr. Vandy is a real strong supporter of differentiation in the classroom, and I think you can see the results speak for themselves. Again, if you look at partial and does not meet, they are very, very low. Less than 8% of our students did not meet the expectations of approaching, which is close to passing. Look at grade 10, and I want to add in grade 10. Last year, the state was sending out memos, and I remember talking to Dr. Dionisio about this, where there used to be, for students, you had to pass ELA 10. We had students who passed ELA 9, and they thought that's all they had to do. Then we got a memo that says, no, they have to take ELA 10 too. So we were testing the first week in June. Like this high school, we never stopped testing until we were finished with school. But with all the students taking the assessment, 3 out of 4 kids passed. If you look all the way to the left at 45%, that's when we had a huge opt-out. We were not getting a true measure of what our kids were learning. Last year was the first year where majority of our students, I think 97%, and I'll show the slide a little later, took the English 10 and looked at the results. Very encouraging. And then another 20% were approaching, so very close to passing. And as you look at partial does not meet, I mean, look at the difference, 4.3 and 2.7. So with all of our students taking the assessment, it shows what our teachers and what our supervisors and administrators are doing. Great work. And you look at grade 11 now, you would say, oh my goodness, it's at 26%. But if I show you the stat, only 19 students who are eligible actually took the ELA 11. Students in 11th grade, if they take one of our SUPA courses like creative nonfiction, or if they take AP literature or language, they do not have to take the Part 11. So this is not reliable at all. I mean, if we're doing a dissertation, right, Dr. Dionisio, this just
sample size is too small.
way too
19
small.
kids is not enough out of a 160 graduating class.
And you're eliminating some of the most
Well,
high students.
the students who are the most, who have the most confidence
Yeah.
aren't taking it.
Well, kids are taking AP Lang.
Yeah.
They're
So it's always good to know the story behind the statistics because it's good to be informed. When we go to, do we have any questions for language arts?
No, I'm just saying, it's really interesting.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when I first looked and then I looked at the numbers, and we know because most of our kids don't take it. We go, oh, okay. We'll go into more mathematics results now. So we get to grade 3. Last year we started our initiative working on rich math tasks. So what the PARC assessment asks are complex questions, questions that are more complex than what our textbooks ask right now. So we started with just a small group. So in grade 3, we actually had 3 teachers. Individually, they soared, but overall, as an average, our average was 61%. Again, it's grade 3. I think they're learning. If you look, the partial and does not meet are not high, a little bit higher than what they were, but a slight shift. If you look at grade 4, though, as a whole, if you look at 4 years ago, we had 38% of our students that were earning proficiency. Now we're at 60%. Again, we had 4 fourth grade teachers that were working on rich math tests, and you see the difference. Like the kids are more used to the idea of not getting it right the first time, the idea of increasing their stamina. Like some students, without good training, try a question, they give up quickly, and they just don't do anything and go to the next question. So they're starting to learn that it's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to take your time. So results are very promising, and they will get better every year. In grade 5, our teachers in grade 5 work really hard. Ms. Kunkel, and last year it was, what was Trish's last name? Al, sorry? What was Trish's last name? Last year, grade 5? So I want to say about, they both worked very well together. They embraced the idea of rich math pass. Even Mr. Cunningham, the special education teacher, he does it almost daily now, the idea of rich math pass, and they've increased their results. That's the highest they've been in 4 years. And if you can notice with partial and does not meet, it again is shifted to approaching, and again is shifted over to meets or exceeds. In grade 6, we start to separate our students a little. Some students have Math 6 above, and some have Math 6. But as you can see overall, our results hover around 60%, 22% in approaching, which is a little lower. Our partial does not meet, we're up a little. But when you go to grade 7, in grade 7 we have students that start taking algebra. And we have students that are in Math 7. It's not just Math 7, so algebra students, we have about 1/8 of the students to 2/8. The rest of the students are either taking pre-algebra or Math 7. These students take Math 7. And if you see, that's our highest score in 4 years, and our approaching scores increase as well. Again, if you look at partial does not meet, the students are shifting. They're going from 740 to 750 to 760. They're getting better. And I want to add, as a former math teacher, it's neat and also a challenge to have the students take a math test on a computer. Like, it just doesn't lend itself the same way like when you're trying to answer stuff.
Mr. Miller, when they're taking a math test on a computer, do they have those pencil and paper?
They do. And their teachers practice that in the classroom as well.
Okay, so they can figure out, and then they're just,
And then they type it in.
answers.
But it's still like, it's interesting because some students, like, I'm older, so that's how I think, but some of them are like, they try to do it in their head, and we're like, no, you have to write it down,
So,
you know?
so does that worksheet get handed in with the test, so
No.
whoever okay, so nobody gets to see a student's thought
Now, when we
process?
collect it, we destroy it, we shred it, and that's part of the agreement that we have with the consortium. Yeah. I'm with you, it'd be neat if it could be scanned so they get an idea of partial
I
credit.
would assume that part of learning is your thought process, so maybe if I made a clerical error, but I understood
Right.
the process.
It is, and they try to do it, but when you get standardized testing, that's the one of the negatives is that it's so large that you don't have enough people to do that.
Thank
No.
you.
You're welcome. And then we look at grade 8. These are students, again, like I was talking about with language arts to some degree. These are students who have the least amount of confidence. Now we have students in grade 8 that have algebra and geometry, and about half of our students, to 5/8 of them, have Math 8. They're very capable, they're at grade level, but they have the least amount of confidence. And since we track them, these students are the ones that tend to say, I don't like math that much. They're more likely to say that. So these are the numbers here, 19, around 20%, 40% were approaching, and then you have your partial. A couple of notes that I like to have here is, last year there were 174 students in grade 8, 87 out of 106 students completed the Math 8. So that's around 82% of the students. We did have some students in grade 8, around 18%, who didn't take it. I'm not going to say who they were because it's random. I don't really know. They opted out. Or like they took the first day and then they didn't finish it. Like they'll be like, they'll come back the second day and go, I don't want to take it. We can't make them take it. We just say, okay. Or they'll literally come in and they'll say, you know, I don't want to take it today. We offer it during makeups, or they just don't take it. So they opt out.
So just for some clarification, there were 174 eighth graders. 106 of them were eligible based on the course that they were taking for Math 8
Yes.
PARC assessment. The
Mm-hmm.
174 minus the 106.
106.
Is the difference of the other students who are already beyond that and they're in geometry and algebra assessments.
Agreed.
Okay.
And we're going to get that in the next slide. So again, 43 of our eighth graders, and since we have houses, they're in both houses in grade 8, and then we had 25 students in both houses total that took geometry. The next slide, we go into, and this is a new one, so if you look to the left, the 4 graphs to the left, the bars, are HPW. And blue means that they passed. All right? Not for the Giants. Sorry, but it's for passing. And then the high school is HBW pass. Well, they're the most motivated too. I'm not going to say that they're smarter, but they're definitely more motivated. They have more confidence with math. And only like 5% of the students, 6 were approaching. When you get to the high school, 34% passed, and you say, well, that's not that good, but it has increased 10 points over time. Started at 24, I went down to 16, 31. And again, another good indicator of where we are with this, because you see a lot of them approaching, is that most of the students took this because of the memos that were sent last year. So that's a pretty good measure. What we're doing is, this year with our rich math pass analysis and with our study, is we're going to work through grade 8, and then next year we're going to work with the high school. So the idea of working with students and getting to these students sooner than later, we're going to build up confidence with students where we'll see more students at the high school with algebra will actually take it in the middle school over time. We're never going to have 100%, but we think we can probably, right now we're at about 40% that take algebra and geometry, algebra at the middle school. We're hoping to get to around 60% over time. So have a flip. And it has to deal with confidence and how to conquer math, how to approach it. And know that you're not always supposed to be right. So we're working on that mindset, even with our teachers. When we look at geometry, and this is very pleasing, at the high school, at the middle school, it's always good. Last year we were at 100%, 2 years ago, last year we were at 90%. So it's fantastic. If you look at the high school, 50% of the students, 1 out of 2 earn a passing score. So that's pretty incredible. The geometry test is not easy. The state set the line for algebra to be the passing test. It's pretty remarkable if you see where we started. And again, that was with some opt-outs, but with majority of our students, I think about 97% taking it, 1 out of 2 earned a passing score. And the other good news is with geometry and algebra 2, if you get the red bar approaching, that counts as part of the passing score. A 3, 4, or 5 counts because of the complexity of the test. So in actuality, 80% of our students pass geometry at the high school level.
So the geometry test at HB or at high school is the same.
Same exact test.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then somewhere in there, do you have the percentage of students that took it as an 8th grader as opposed to the percentage of students that took it?
I believe I do. If not, I can pull it up for you.
90-something%. Is that 90-something%?
That's 90%. So they all took it. Yeah, I have it on, I think, the next slide. I'll get that to you. I knew you'd ask that question, so I put the slide in there for you. Roughly, it's about 25 students every year in geometry at HB. And these are the students that are really hungry, that are just like, they'll do math at 2 in the morning. Just, it tickles them. I love it. So now we get to Algebra 2. And you can see, again, we administered the testing window, and then we got the memo, and then we tested the students again, and the students are like, it's not going away. We're like, no. And that's when our counselors are reaching out, calling parents, saying, yes, you have to take it. We were making these phone calls. A lot of the kids took the test. And again, you'll see here, 94 out of 178 eligible students completed the PARC Algebra 2. PARC Algebra 2, when they were talking about the PARC, the Algebra 2, there were people who were like cringing, saying there's no way that this can be considered a test where the kids have to pass, because it's really, really complex. But this is a testament to our curriculum, our supervisors, our teachers, our kids, even our parents who say, do your homework, and sometimes review them with their homework and for their tests. 56% is an impressive score. I think it'd be even higher if we had more students take it. I know in my gut, I think there are just some students who would have passed who didn't take it. So what you saw like in language arts with so many kids earning a passing score, I think if all the students would have taken this, you would have seen us probably at 70%. And our teachers work very hard in Algebra 2. I don't know if you remember Algebra 2 in school, but it's a really cool subject, but it also can be very scary. You're analyzing circles, and you're looking at graphs, intercepts, all these things. Participation. So this is the Mr. Quattrochi slide. So what we have here is, for language arts, 11, only 15% of our students participated. In math 8, it was 82%, and algebra 2, it was 53%. So if you take a look at HBW geometry, all the students took the assessment, as opposed to at high school, 98%. So it's still a very strong representation. Okay.
Right, but that ELA 11, 15% that took it.
That's it.
Right, that's 15% of what's all, 176?
Yeah,
74,
around there.
60, whatever the.
We
class is.
fluctuate by 10, but yeah, so that's, I think we had 19 students take the ELA.
And which combination of those are required to graduate?
Graduating is ELA 10 and the Algebra 1.
Right, so both, you have to.
Both.
Right, so that ELA 10 is 98,
Yes.
99%. So
Mhm.
somebody didn't take it, that still needs to take it.
Yeah, there are a couple students.
Okay.
Okay? And then there's an update, this just in. All right, so the test will no longer be known as Park, so there'll be some tears shed, I'm sure. So what's interesting is we just got this memo, I think Dr. Dean said last week, right? So what's interesting is it's going to be called the NJSLS, so that's the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, English Language Arts Test, and the New Jersey Student Learning Standards Math Test. It's still going to be the Park test, but we're not going to be part of the Park Consortium. So we will end up scoring it ourselves because you need time to develop a test. We haven't had time yet. Governor Murphy found out last year, like, wait a minute, this takes longer than I thought. So we're going to take it, but we're not going to compare ourselves. I think there was a huge listening tour done by the state in the spring, and what folks were asking is why are we compared to other people? Now, I was fine with it. I think we do very well. But so they said, all right, we're going to pull away the name. We're ultimately going to design a new assessment. I hope it's as strong as what we have because it should be standards driven because our teachers do a very good job. You've seen over 4 years in almost every grade level we've increased our scores for passing. What's also good, and this also came out, is we will be saving time. So if you are in high school, the testing time is around 8 hours. It'll go down to about 5 hours. In the middle school, if it was around 8 hours, it'll go down to about 5 hours. So where it used to take us 4 days to test students, it might just take 3. We're toying with the idea of starting the test a little bit later in the year and doing grades 3 and 4 over 3 days, getting a couple days off, and then doing the middle school in 3 days, and then doing the same thing. So we could push the test back so our teachers at the elementary and middle school have more time to teach kids. Because the more time you have to teach, the better results you're going to get. So that's in discussion right now with Mr. Balaj and the principals. And it's also been proposed, and I have a slide of this, it's easier to see. This is what's been proposed. So current is the second column, and what's proposed is the third column. So the goal initially was to have one test at the high school for language arts and math. We think there was, obviously it's politics and education, so 9th and 10th graders will take an assessment. We do not think 11th graders next year will be taking assessments. Now, so that means English Language Arts 11, well, most of our kids don't take it anyway. But what's interesting for math is our students who are the most accelerated will take Algebra 2 in 9th grade and they'll be done anyway. A lot of our students will take Algebra 2 in 10th grade and some will take it in 11th. But what they're saying right now is that they have to still pass Algebra 1. What is nice to see also is that these alternates for graduation are in effect. So it's not just portfolio, it's you take the PSAT and earn a score. Then the minimum is good. If you take the SAT, if you take the ACT, that all came back. Last spring we saw, well, it's only the portfolio, and then there was a huge buildup at the state, and we knew that there would eventually be a shift.
Can you speak to the caveat, though, regarding what would allow you to be eligible for the portfolio process?
Sure. So in order to be eligible, what they say is you need to sit for these end-of-course tests. So if you are taking algebra as a freshman, you need to sit for that test. If you don't pass it, that's okay. You have an ability if you want to retake it in the fall. You could get like some type of tutoring if you want. Talk to Mr. Coggo about it at the high school. The idea of tutoring and taking it again in the fall. Or you could take geometry, and if you pass that, that would work too. Or you could take the Algebra 1 again in the spring. The idea is as long as you attempt it again, if you ultimately don't pass it, then you can, because we administer the PSAT every October for every freshman, sophomore, and junior, if you earn a passing score, then you're okay. They don't want students opting out though. So if you don't opt out, then you have all the options available. But if you opt out, that's a different story. So we think it's fair. It's here, why not take it? And they've reduced the time, so the state has listened to what the parents had to say on their listening tour, so we're pleased with that. And for us, It's more teaching time and less standardized testing time. And these are just useful websites that folks can go to. I'm going to post this on our webpage and on my webpage tonight. Are there any questions?
I have a quick
Sure.
question. So when you were talking about the test timeline and you're going to try and do it later in the year.
Yes.
Do all the scores come in the same time? Because so no matter when you take it in the year, the scores come in the same. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. We decided years ago to give the test to our high school students after AP. And then everyone I talked to, they're like, that's a good idea. How do you do that? You just write a waiver and they can't say no. And we decided to do it over 4 days, so it was less of a headache up here because you just take it and you get it done. But we worked all year on to getting to AP. We didn't want to get in the way of that. And with our AP results, you see that it's benefiting our students. Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Okay, we can do our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Just 3 quick updates. It's a short superintendent report tonight. The first is there is resolution 2.3 tonight. That is Mrs. Terry Frediani, who has announced her retirement. So I just wanted to acknowledge her publicly and thank her for her 23 years of service to the district. She has been an administrative assistant and an integral part of the special education team. Predominantly works at Lanning Elementary School and spends some time here at central office and special services. She's a valued member of the team. She's been in the district 23 years, and she will be retiring with regret on our behalf on January 2nd. So today we did post a position. She announced it to us a few days ago. We did post a position today, so we'll collect applications for interested candidates, and we'll begin the interview process. So we just wanted to thank her for all of her years of service and wish her very well in the next chapter of her life with her family. On October 30th, at the next Board of Education meeting, we will have a resolution on for an adjustment to our district calendar. So it does not change the days off in the calendar. What it does do is it makes some adjustments for the testing dates, as Mr. Miller has just described. So at our last education committee, Mr. Miller updated the committee on some of the dates that need to be adjusted that have come to fruition after we approved the calendar a number of months ago. So some of those adjustments, and once again, there are no changes to days off. It does not affect, when spring break is or when specific days off are in the calendar. But it does include just noting that the AP exams are at the beginning of May, so it allocates those dates on the calendar. It also does make some adjustments for what we currently call PARC, and now it's going to be called NJSLA. It's taking a while to get used to that, Mr. Miller. For grades 5 and 8, it's going to move from May 30th and 31st to May 28th and 29th. So it's just an adjustment of a couple days. There was a conflict with some field trips that we had at HGW, and that seemed to be a little bit more aligned after talking to Mr. Galbercheck and Mrs. McNeil. We are also going to be adding June 4th and 5th for a delayed opening in the calendar for grade 11 NJSLA assessment part. And the last thing on the calendar that was once again approved a number of months ago, before we negotiated and settled and ratified the contract with the VEA, was that there is no longer going to be the spring conferences, the mandatory spring conferences that are part of the calendar in, I believe it was March on the calendar. So that's been adjusted. So parents still have the option for, of course, meeting with their teacher, their child's teacher, talking to them, coming in for a meeting. But the feedback that we've received is that although there are some conferences that are held in the spring, it's not really necessary to have actual allocated conferences with half days, and that time is better spent utilizing it as instructional time in the calendar, and teachers will still be able to meet with parents, but only the parents who really feel that there's a need to come and talk or communicate via email or over the phone as they've always done.
And was that just elementary?
That's just elementary.
Just elementary.
That's just elementary. The conferences for elementary and the middle school still occur in the fall, so that's still part of the
Got
calendar.
it.
And then, last but not least, we did just have 2 professional development days in district. So we had September 28th, which was a full-day professional development day, and we also had yesterday, where it was on October 8th in the afternoon. Yesterday was primarily devoted to teachers working on their own on student growth objectives. Over the past couple of weeks, they've implemented the assessments in order to make sure that they take benchmarks for our students and to really identify goals moving forward instructionally as far as the curriculum goes in establishing those student growth objectives. On Friday the 28th of September, we had a lot of things going on. We had what we call GCN training, which is state mandated training. We had student growth objective work. Our special education department did handle with care training. And we had teachers working on professional development plans. And we had a large number of people with a lot of support from federal, state, local police organizations in working with us and with medical professionals from University Hospital all around really school security, planning procedures, triage, making sure that we had a constructive dialogue. And we had a great turnout. Very well received by our faculty. We had the Paramus Police Department here, really talking about safety and planning and emergency response coming off of the terrible bus tragedy that they dealt with. So, our thoughts go out to that community who is still obviously reeling from that very difficult tragedy. We had the FBI who was here doing emergency response and crisis management with us as well. Last year in the spring, we had met with the FBI and did a training with solely the leadership team. We partnered up with Caldwell Police at the time as well, and they came in and we did training with them. We also had University Hospital, and University Hospital emergency technicians were in talking about emergency response and what we can do as part of crisis response. And last but not least, we had numerous members of our local law enforcement, Verona Police Department, who were here working with our teachers, working with our counselors, our administrators, our custodians, maintenance staff, all around school safety procedures. So I won't go into the details because a lot of it is around the confidentiality of how we go about planning, not only with our crisis handbook, but also how we go about really having a constructive dialogue with our teachers and with our staff to make sure that we are not only prepared for, God forbid, if there were ever an emergency, and emergencies do happen, and we are prepared for them. We continue to professionally staff develop for that and doing a lot of tabletop exercises. But rather than just focusing on reactive measures, really, what are the proactive strategic measures that we take in the district in order to make sure that we're planning and thinking ahead? So that way, we're ensuring that the dialogue that's being had with the adults, the warning signs, how we can respond in advance to prevent any unnecessary misfortune. So very constructive 2 days and very well received. So we'll continue as part of our school safety team and school security planning, more professional development, and looking forward to what we can do later on in the year. But it was a good couple of days.
That's a good question. I was unable to attend the food truck festival. Did you get any feedback about that? I heard it was
No,
success,
but-
but
Sometimes.
It was a huge success. Conference SCA and all the local SCAs did a terrific job. It went off in its second year very smoothly. As with any, event planning, reflecting on last year, our parents who were in charge of organizing it, facilitating it, our local SCA did a tremendous job. We had 14 food trucks on the upper lot. We had vendors who were kind of sandwiched in between in the center of the upper lot, so there was a lot of traffic for our table vendors. So that was a nice thing. And last year we had them in the back near the tennis courts. We moved them up front this time, so that worked out well. We had the touch truck, so for those smaller children, we had emergency response vehicles, we had some front loaders and landscape machines, so they had a big kick out of that. We had some bouncy houses and events for the smaller kids, and they even did, we were fortunate to have a number of donations from local businesses, where we had a pumpkin patch for the little kids as well, and that was all on the grass portion of the upper field. So it was very, very well attended. But I was here for a bit with people here at Verona High School, and it was very, very well attended. So there were a lot of good people here, and parking was not easy, but that's why we run the shuttle. So that works out very well. People could park at the pool, and we just run the bus back and forth every 5 minutes. So it worked out.
Okay, we'll do committee reports. The first one is education and special education. And for that, the first two things easy enough to cover, as Dr. Dionisio said. At the next meeting, we'll have to adopt some slight changes to the calendar. Again, no change to student attendance, days off, early dismissal, or any of that. Just notes certain testing dates that are occurring that have shifted a bit, once we have to schedule for the state. Secondly, we talked a bit about the park results and anticipating Mr. Miller's presentation tonight. We also discussed progress on extending the Rich Math program, which Dr. Dionisio said wide to the 7th and 8th grade from where it sits today. PSAT testing on the 10th.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes. Delayed opening for the high school.
As well as SAT prep. Differentiated reading workshop, staff development is happening this week as well for grades 5 to 8. Observations kicking off with approximately 200 walkthroughs conducted, and then and that continues. That's not a tally. New teacher training academy for INRS 504s and IPs with Mr. Moriello coming up. The calendar changes which I just talked about. And then in special services, there was some prep for a meeting Monday, which is the CPAC meeting that Mr. Moriello is going to run. Reviewed upcoming para and bus driver appointments that are in the budget, just appointments for vacant seats. And then we also reviewed progress on 5 particular student dispute cases in the special education. Questions? Oh, and then lastly, there's a resolution tonight on curriculum updates that are from the meeting prior, I believe, that are on the agenda tonight. Did athletics and corporate meet?
No, we were scheduled to meet and something suddenly came up, Brady Bunch.
So we'll have to reschedule that, and we'll do an update at the October 30th meeting.
Did buildings and grounds meet?
We did meet. We met last week. We received enough, the roof repairs, I think we report next time, but have been completed. These are just Band-Aids in anticipation of doing future work that will require total replacement, but it's going to get us by with the time being. We received an update on the storm water from August, the flooding. The work has all been completed except for 4th Avenue playground retaining wall. I think we get some quotes on that, and we are looking to get it completed pretty soon. I don't know if I recall the exact date, but it's.
So we signed off on getting the work completed with the contractor. The lowest estimate that we received on that work was not to exceed $32,000 to remove that wall, replace the drainage, build that wall back up, brand new. Ms. Nardino has submitted the claim to the insurance company. I don't know if
we've heard back.
Have you heard back at all yet?
I have not heard back. I've been playing phone tag with the insurance company, but the check should be en route too, so.
So you think that there was some discussion as to whether that will be covered?
Yeah, when I initially submitted it, the person just receiving the information wasn't sure, so they were gonna run it by some other people, but I'll email the board, this
Okay.
week.
In the past, and issues like that, is about being fairly effective at getting.
We haven't had damage like this, and
Yeah, that was
John,
rather
never
odd.
ever.
The only time we had anything close to this was also rain. It was pre-construction, so I remember that we flooded through that side door that would go around the forest.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't have that forest.
Oh, that was.
A long time ago.
Without the $32,000 for that retaining wall, we're well over $100,000 in damage, and our deductible is $50,000. So we'll just have to wait to see how much. Hopefully, all of it's covered, but we really don't know yet on that $32,000.
Yeah.
The check's going out. We did some repairs to the VHS auditorium air conditioning system. We had to repair one of the compressors and as well, the automated system, the computer controls were tweaked to make sure it's fully operational, which it is at this point. We've been kind of struggling with that through the fall, or through last spring, and last year really. This just came up. We briefly mentioned, I think, before that the New Jersey, the NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection, had been out to the property in April to look at the environmental issues stemming from the sinkhole material that had been put on the tennis court side of the field and up the bank towards the road as you go to that side. We received a report back on the 14th, and there were some recommendations that were made and some requirements that we're gonna have to do. The DEP has mandated that we be inspected over the course of the next 30 years to ensure the environmental cap remains intact at all times. Additionally, as part of this, we're going to be required to retain a licensed site remediation professional, LSRP, to inspect and report these findings on an annual basis. And actually this evening we have a resolution on the agenda to approve French and Perillo to do this work, and it's not to exceed, so it's a number that's not to exceed 10,300. Very hard. And that's not the invoice we're paying. That's just to pay them for any work they do, not to exceed that amount. So we haven't received anything from them yet associated with this.
So actually, I do have an update since we last
Okay.
met. So for the cost for this submission and their review, which requires the LSRP, as you mentioned, the cost was not to exceed $2,000
Okay.
for this work. So
Okay.
they gave me that in advance before they came
Okay,
back.
good. And some other things that we had to do in conjunction with this is that we had to close the partially open gate on Fairview Avenue, adjacent to the tennis court. We had to reseed the lawn area adjacent to the upper parking lot. We had to fill cracks and holes in their upper parking lot. We actually resurfaced that and restructured it as well. Otherwise, it's just going to be a big mess. And we had to install signage to provide visitors keep out of fenced areas adjacent to the parking lot. And you can see some of this work's already taken place. I noticed the signs up on Fairview Avenue as well that they were new. And then finally, we have on this week's agenda, or this week's resolution, is the resolution to approve AECom for the architectural fee for planning any referendum that work that we're planning to do for next year. So they'll be going through the buildings as we do this, identify existing needs and do a set survey of specific buildings that we have issues with that we've identified. Any questions?
Just a question on the timing of that. So we approve it tonight, and then when do we get results, at least preliminarily, from the board to contemplate? Because part of what they're doing is assessing the things that we've given them to assess, and then they're also assessing things we haven't thought about.
We're anticipating probably January timeframe
Yeah.
to get your report back.
Right.
And that'll give us some time as well to review that, make some decisions, get some public buy-in, feedback, and then submit to the state. We're looking at a possibility of a September referendum, but TBD on that.
Okay. The community resources meeting.
We did our report last meeting, so we didn't have a chance to do this one.
Okay. Do we have any discussion items? Right. We do have a resolution to appoint Mr. Shells, who's here tonight, as our new supervisor of humanities, taking Dr. Banch's position. So we do need to pass the resolution first before you can officially wind the clock on your notice period at your current place. And if you'd like to come up and say a few words, that'd be great before we do that.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Shells, and I am honored and very excited to join the Verona learning community. This year marks my 23rd year in public education, in which I have served as a teacher of social studies in the Pequannock Township School District, a supervisor of social studies and world languages in the Sparta Township School District, and most recently, an assistant principal at Sparta High School. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have the professional opportunity to supervise the humanities in this wonderful community and extremely well-regarded school district. I look forward to being able to work alongside the dedicated faculty and administrative team assembled here. It has often been said that schools are as good as the personnel who populate them. With this thought in mind, and based on my interactions with the teachers and school leaders I have met thus far throughout the interview process, it is little wonder why the Verona School District has such a sterling reputation and remains a desirous place to work and learn. In part, this is based on the following core values and qualities: visionary leadership, collaborative teamwork, a shared mission, an openness to new ideas born of best practice research, a strong school-community partnership, a refusal to rest on previous laurels, and an enduring commitment to always do what is best for children. For my part, and from the viewpoint of a humanities-based education, the engine that drives this continual forward movement is the persistent growth of students' literacy skills across the curriculum, enabling them to have myriad opportunities to read and to effectively write and think and talk about what they read. These are skills that will remain imperative and in high demand in colleges and careers in any century. It is this work that I am excited to begin shortly. In closing, I would like to thank Dr. Dionisio and the district-wide administrative team for the engaging, thoughtful, and collaborative interview process I am grateful to have participated in. It was equal parts challenging and welcoming, rigorous yet gratifying. I would also like to thank the Board of Education and all community stakeholders for welcoming me here tonight and for inviting me to introduce myself. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, quote, "The greatest gift life has to offer is the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing," end quote. To this quote, I would add with sincerity that part of that gift is the opportunity to do that work here at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll do our resolutions.
Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through number 10 and addendum resolutions number 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Fresky, seconded by Mr. Day. Any questions? Okay, let's go roll.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mrs. Fresky?
Yes.
Mr. Quattro?
Aye. Okay, we'll open up to any public comment or question. Okay. All right, we will close tonight's meeting. Our next meeting will be October 30th. We have a week delay in the next meeting, Mr. McCallum, because of the school board's conference that happens the week of the 22nd. So the next meeting will be October 30th, with a confidential session at 6 p.m. and public meeting at 7.